Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them as podcasts at ArtistFirst.com. Send your questions and comments to DJ at ArtistFirst.com. And now out to your hosts. It's Michael and Margaret Lyons.
We are bopping tonight. Thank you very much, Z-Man, and I am Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
I think. And welcome to the Soul of the Everyman show, where you just don't know the value of stuff until it's gone, like our theme music. Oh, that was awesome! Actually, it was very like no, it was like kind of like 70s. It was like Starsky and Hutch or something. We're coming down the thing. It's like, all right, now I'm dating myself. All right, well, so
focus.
Let's focus. And to focus tonight, welcome again to the Soul of the Everyman show. And tonight's show is about appreciation. And now I can hear everyone across America and all the ships at sea saying, "Who cares about appreciation? Get to the good stuff." Appreciation is the good stuff.
It is the spice of life.
Well, it's certainly something that we should all practice, and really what it is not that people think you say appreciation, people think, well, you should be telling people how much they mean to you or how much. No, it's not that at all. It's sort of it's the true appreciation is sort of an internal feeling, and I think it only hits us, or hits most of us. We appreciate things at an unfortunate time. It's when they're gone. We, all of us, are very content with what we, with what we're, what we have, what we think is sort of like the status quo. And we say, well, I'd like this, I'd like to go to Hawaii, I'd like this, I'd like the other thing. But you think everything that pretty much that you've secured and that you have available to you and around you is sort of like, that's my baseline. None of that's going to change. That's all going to be cool all the time. And the things that I'm hoping for are kind of like just that icing on the cake. Going to be even more good stuff. And in fact, it becomes sort of not only just a status quo, but almost unnoticed, unappreciated, it becomes a something you just take for granted.
Yes. Pretty much, you basically assume that it's always going to be there, but you're not really evaluating or experiencing what this moment or person or thing is actually doing in your life.
Right, and you don't value it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very good point, Margaret. It's not just things; it's people, and it's people more than anything else. Largely, we go through our lives, especially our early lives, kind of taking for granted, certainly as younger people and as children, that we're just the most specialist, cutest people in the world, and we just deserve all the things that we're getting. And it's only when something that we don't get what we want, the extra top secret, rocket or toy or doll or whatever it is, that we start. Lego, so we start whining and complaining, and it's that sort of lack of realization of what you already have. The tendency to just assign all that as a zero, as a well, that's always there. I don't need to worry about like the air I'm breathing or the roof over my head or anything. That's just a status quo. But yet, those things, well, the air that you're breathing hopefully doesn't vanish, because that's it's really hard to appreciate when it's gone. But the things that are part of your life and the people that are part of your life, when they do, and unfortunately they do sometimes go, it does hit you right between the eyes.
Yeah. Its appreciation, its foundation is knowing what the value or the worth of this person or thing is in your life.
and how you value it. I mean, I think largely when we get things that we don't necessarily, we don't really do anything for. Okay, let's just say let's say most people have a decent relationship with their parents. Maybe that's not true in some cases, but in general, we don't. They're just there. I mean, you showed up one day, and there were these great giant people who just decided to feed you and take care of you and change your diapers and do all these things for you, and you're like, this is awesome, and yet you go through all of your young life and your adolescence and your early adulthood and so on, and you'll go quite a long ways. I'd say most people do go quite a long ways without thinking, well, what would I have done had these people not spent all that time and all those goods and all that food and all that money on me? So the fact that they did this is not just underappreciated; it's just discounted. It's like, well, I was there, and I was cute and family, and yet when those people are gone, and they will be gone, it's often a shattering event. Oh, I wish I had more time. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. You start to understand the loss it's almost a completely unexplored territory. All of a sudden, these people are out of your life. They're gone. They pass on, and the depth to which their presence was part of your being suddenly becomes apparent.
Okay.
And
how much of a foundation to who you are, how you were formed,
right,
and how you love and interact with the world around you.
The debt you owe them.
Mm-hmm. It's only when you're older and probably have children does that even occur to you.
This is very true. Is this is a saying I think that I'm not sure what clever person came up with it, where when I was a young man, my father became progressive. As I grew older, from being a teenager to being a young man, my father grew progressively less and less relevant and more uneducated and stupid. And amazingly, when I had turned 25, it was amazing how much the old man had learned in just that short period of time. And what it is of course is that as a young person with a lot of inexperience on your side, with the depth of inexperience and the bravado to go with it, you really do think that that no one knows anything, that you kind of know it all. That's a very common theme. And then suddenly, as you meet the challenges of real life or realer life, it comes to you that, man, maybe my parents kind of handle this somehow. Maybe I'll ask them how they did it. And all of a sudden, their advice goes from being unnecessary and just old hat, and who would want to ask them a question, to being invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when life catches up with you.
Right, when life catches up with you. And I think that your point is exactly that. Once you hit a challenge in your own life, and you think to yourself, well, I don't know how to do this. You reach some point in your life where you don't know how to do something. You think,
right?
Do I know anybody who might have? Maybe somebody I can ask.
Yeah, and it's usually not your friends who are the same age as you.
Right, 'cause you realize suddenly that they're all idiots too.
You're all in the same leaky boat together. Yes,
all in the same leaky boat, and that's a sort of a revelation where you suddenly start to value someone else's life experience. But I think you still don't get to the point where you truly appreciate it until you can't even do that, until you can't call up mom or call up dad and say, hey, I'm having this problem, and what do you think? You think you know how to. Could we talk about it? Maybe you've done this before. Maybe you've seen this done before, and suddenly you realize that lack, that thing that you've lost, is almost impossible. Maybe impossible to get back. You now have to go through the hard knocks of figuring it out on your own.
Yeah. Taking the steps on your own without any foreknowledge.
Or at least not even any, just support. Just someone there to say, well, I didn't do exactly that, but I did this. And you have this sort of, you have an underappreciated component, a resource, a person who understands a little bit more about you than the average person off the street.
Well, someone who loves you.
Someone who loves you too. But it's also, it's the irreplaceability of these people.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is that your relationship is of this love relationship, ideally speaking, and your parents would be the ones who would be able to love you unconditionally, ideally speaking.
Ideally speaking.
Okay. So to have that kind of a flow back and forth where it's just love that's the baseline of your relationship, heart to heart, and then not to have that person there physically changes your relationship to the person that's left completely, because now you've got to rely on your own heart relationship that you had with that person to almost advise you.
Yes, and there is that aspect. If you've learned, sort of internalized, sort of found your own identity and realized that it does incorporate some portions of these people within yourself. But I think, before we go too far down, and that's a wonderful topic. It's a wonderful topic to explore. It really comes down to, again, this sort of it's a very common tendency that we all have to discount the value of things that we think we're never going to lose.
It's always going to be there.
It's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. You don't think to yourself, well, I better go down to the store and buy a gallon of water, because you just turn the tap on and there it is. But then when, this is a silly example, but when suddenly the water isn't flowing, or the electricity, which is even better, isn't flowing, you become keenly aware of the fact that the sun goes down and it gets dark and cold, and there's not much you can do about it. Or, if you have to do something about it, it takes a tremendous effort. All of a sudden, you're back 150 years ago, lighting candles and wandering around the house like some sort of thing out of an Edgar Allan Poe novel.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like saying, or something like Quasimodo, or it's just you're.
Cooking is hard unless you have a fire.
Everything becomes.
Everything has now reverted back to a very early time.
An early time, a time where you then, where you appreciate a meal because you know how much it took to get it to get that thing to a point from an inedible lump of cold meat to a sizzling steak. Now it's not just something you can do. Turn on the burner, throw it in the pan, lights are on, cooking, fans, all this other stuff, and you season it up and eat it. No, now it's it's going outside and
finding wood,
strangling a deer. I mean, it's funny, but it's these kind of physical things are a good analog for a lot more significant things. The abilities that we all take for granted, walking, sight, our mental faculties, the things that we kind of Right, you're right. For me, not mental faculties. Better example. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that there's a whole generation of us that don't know what it's like not to have a cell phone.
Ooh, also a good one.
But I mean, yeah, it only took a generation,
or even half a generation. 10 years.
For it to become relied upon and assumed that it's always going to be there. I mean, you see people running around if suddenly their connection is broken and they're like, ah!
Right.
Or the battery is dead.
Oh my God, the battery goes dead. I don't have Wi-Fi here. Oh my God, these kind of physical lacks, or these kind of abilities that are external to us, like a cell phone. It's even more sort of a betrayal when your own body starts to. You really take for granted that when you open your eyes in the morning, you'll be able to see what kind of day it is. But yet,
for yourself, the ability just to be able to do for yourself,
the ability to get up out of bed
mm-hmm.
and do for yourself. And when these things are suddenly gone, and they can be gone suddenly, or they can be gone over a period of time, there's to think to yourself, well, how would I get that back? What would I do? What would the value of the ability to just get out of bed be? Well, there's no value at all. What's getting out of bed? It's nothing. Everyone does it. Everyone does it every day. Well, if you stop and think for a moment, suppose I couldn't do that simple act. I couldn't just get up out of bed, and I had to have somebody do that for me, or I would just lie there,
right.
completely helpless. Well, then it becomes almost invaluable. Everything else depends upon it. The things that we take for granted, we hold them as valueless because they seem to be just a vehicle for getting to something else. Getting out of bed is just a vehicle for going to get a shower, and then for a vehicle to get into the car and go to work and get the money. But if you can't do step A, if you can't take your next breath, you're not going to do any of those things. So the tiniest of actions can become invaluable. Opening your eye and being able to see seems, what's the value of that? 0. Well, until you can't do it. If you can't open your eyes and see, it becomes the value of everything else in your life that requires that. It becomes this triangle, Margaret. It's this tiny little tip, but it covers so much. Your next breath covers the rest of your life. Because if you can't take it, you're kind of done.
Right.
Your getting out of bed covers what you consider everything you do, your freedom, your independence, your job, your money, it all kind of depends on you being able to swing your legs out and put them on the floor without falling over. Well, that's the point, is the value of things has to be looked at from the perspective of what would you have to do to replace that thing,
Right. Well, at that point, you would have to actually reevaluate who you are, because something as simple as being able to do for yourself is part of your own individual identity and autonomy.
Right.
And if you suddenly can't do that, you're not an autonomous person. You have to begin to redefine to yourself who you are, because one of the main reasons why people go into such deep depressions.
Exactly.
They suddenly look at it and go, wait, who am I now? I can't do the simplest of things, and I've got to have help for everything. This is not what I want. This is not who I am. You hear that statement.
And here we come to exactly the cleaving point. Very, very important point. One side of this cleaving point are us as this kind of inviolate soul going forward and appreciating what we have. And that's a wonderful thing, is saying, cherishing every moment, living in the moment, cherishing every moment. But the other side of that is so incredibly significant, is what you just said. Is if I can't do these things, it's an existential question. Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And when you see people who are suddenly lost something which they weren't appreciating and didn't know that was incredibly important, and they were actually using it to define themselves. I am a person who can jump this high, whatever it is, and all of a sudden you can't. And
I'm a person who can drive.
I'm a person who can drive. I'm a person who can do for myself. All of a sudden you can't, and you are faced with an existential question. And there's two ways you can go there. You can go into what you just said. Then I'm nobody. I'm depression. I might as well take myself off the planet. Or you can do something incredible, which is that you find that who you are has nothing to do with what you can do,
Mm-hmm.
or what your abilities are. And then you find that's a whole different space, because there is an absolute here. There's an absolute thing which is you, which we then define by many different things and put into many different boxes. But you take all those things away and you say, well, I want those things. Those things define me. But then you have to realize you get to the end of all those things and you say you can't have them. Do they define you? And you have to say, no.
Do they truly define you?
Right.
Have you come to the point where you acknowledge that who you are is more than what you do or
have, or even the people that are around you? The interesting thing about loss, is just what we're really talking about, is that yes, you realize how much it would cost to replace it, how much you've lost. Even though if you didn't realize it before, you realize it now. And you realize that it may never come back. And now you have not just loss, but it's grief, because when you lose something forever, you grieve over it. And then you come to a different point. You say, I've accepted this loss, but now I don't know who I am. I used to be a person who was independent, who could see, who could do all these things, whatever it is. Now I'm none of those things. And suddenly you have to open a very often unused door. Who am I really? Take everything else away. All the loss. Lose it all. Lose everything. Lose your life even. Who am I? And that's a scary place to be.
Most people don't want to look at that.
Most people don't. And we have to be, not only do we get to the point where we can't just say, well, we take everything for granted. The thing we take for granted beyond all other things is that we'll always be here, and we'll always be the same, and we'll always be funny, and we'll always have hair. Whoops. And and then the hair goes, and you're not funny anymore. and you have to realize that as a fat, unfunny, bald person, you can still be you. Not a great you, but a you.
Well, okay, now we're qualifying everything.
Now we're qualifying things. But in truth, when you're afflicted with some disease, when you have a tremendous life-altering event or life-altering loss, they become existential questions. They become a who am I question. And it's the opportunity at that point to let yourself realize that you are not defined by what happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not defined by what you lose. And the converse, you're not defined by what you have or the good things that come to you. You're somewhere in the middle.
And, well, that ground changes.
Yeah.
And most people are blessed with the fact they don't have to redefine that ground. Like as you grew up and your foundation is, okay, I grew up in this family, and the family, You may have different losses, but it's like considered normal.
Normal.
Okay, and so it jives with what the rest of the culture and the society is doing, but it changes, and it's an acceptable change because they basically say, okay, you have this amount of time. We know you're grieving. You'll get over it, and go on to the next thing.
Oh, don't go past that too fast. Oh, you've had enough time to grieve. You'll get over it. Let's go on to the next thing.
Right. But that is what society does.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's acceptable, mind you, but I am saying that is what people do. They want to place things in certain boxes and say, okay, well, this amount of time is appropriate, and this is the way it should happen, and this is what it's got to look like, or, there's all these little check boxes because their world, this is how the world functions. Okay.
Well, you said the word, and it's the word normalcy. There's a certain, like you say, a certain expected arc of change. And when those arcs don't go the way people expect them to be, you get shunned. You get pushed. Oh, that's not. You see, that's not what happens to actual people. You must be one of those other types of people that aren't really real, that we don't want to acknowledge because those are scary things. Because we say, well, this is the way.
That means that my assumption is incorrect. No, it cannot be because I know that this is the way it's supposed to be. In fact, it's been written down in this book and this study.
and what's the fear is that we don't have control, and we don't have. To some extent, that idea of normalcy is very much tied in with this idea of not appreciating what you have, because the normalcy, the air in the room, the water that the fish swims in, is just the status quo. It's just what's supposed to happen. We don't have to be grateful for it. It's just what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to always be there.
Right. And
we define ourselves by that.
An automatic. This is an automatic or a habit form that you just want to let it cover this particular base so you can go on to the more important things.
Oh, even better, the more important things. Where I get to be self-determining and tell people what to do, those important things. Well, I think we have, I noticed that we have a very important thing that we can't do and we're not self-determining about. So we have to go back to the studio for a brief break, but on the other side we will talk more about abnormal things.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lines is book 1 of the adventures of Devkalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, And remember, Dr. Bruce believes in you.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is Minette Lauren, author of Race for the Sun. Do you believe in guardian angels? Check out Book 1 of my Soul Watcher series. It can be found on Amazon.com or anywhere fine books are sold. Go to www.minettelauren.com, and you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them as podcasts at ArtistFirst.com. Now back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Steve-Man. And yes, welcome back to The Soul of the Everyman, the second half hour. And boy, do we appreciate Scott.
Yes, we do.
We do. We really do. Because if Scott wasn't there, we wouldn't be on the air right now.
That's true.
And then you people would just be listening to some blank tone in your ear, which probably happens to you anyway. But anyway, no, never distract the audience. So tonight's show brought to you by the wonderful folks at ArtistFirst Radio. Tonight's show is about appreciation, and we're trying to appreciate what we have, but really, I think what we've kind of come to in the last half hour, Mark, is that no matter who we are, and even if we really do try to appreciate everything we have, there is a level to which we all assume that things are going to be there. You assume that you're going to have your next breath. You assume that you're not going to fall down the stairs and break your neck and be a quadriplegic or whatever. But yet things happen, know. And when something happens that takes away something that you really thought you'd never lose, there's this period of grieving, and there's this period of coming to acceptance, and then there's that period after all that where you just say, well, who am I now? I really defined myself by what I had or what I could do or the abilities that I thought I would never lose. And yet there's this part of me which has nothing to do with any of that. It doesn't have anything to do with what I look like or what I have or who my parents were or whether or not I get my next breath. That part of you, of us, needs to be found.
Yes. Well, that part doesn't change. But a point I'd like to bring up was the concept of changing that foundational, that everything's going to be just fine. It's always done this way. We've always just... And it brought back a memory. I was talking to someone who I guess she thought she was going to help me. And I just remember saying to her, when I say goodbye to my husband and my children in the morning, I really say goodbye, because I know I may not see them in the next moment. That is a reality for me. So she looked at me and said, this can't be good. Isn't that too much to think that way? Like, what's too much? So she basically said, excuse me, guys.
It's like a cliffhanger. I want to hear the next sentence. I'm missing it now. It's like I'm trying to appreciate it. All right, here she comes.
Okay. So sorry, guys. What she said to me was, that's too much. And I'm looking at her going, I know you don't understand what this feels like. And I didn't really want to go into it with her.
Right.
But what she said to me was, well, so when you see your children leave in the morning, just assume they're going to be back. And I went, I can't do that. And she's like, you can't?
You guys are dealing in different realities here.
Exactly. This is my point.
Yeah.
Her foundation of function was, I'm just going to assume that this is going to happen.
Right.
Whereas my reality was, that was not my experience.
Right. And this was after Christopher had passed.
Right.
And after we had a life-altering experience where we were in a different spot.
And just what it said to me was, she just wants you to, she doesn't understand what she's asking you to do is negate a whole life by doing that.
Your definition of who you were, had changed a lot. It's not that hasn't changed since that point, but your definition of who you were, because of the loss of our son, we had to go all the way through the process of accepting that. It's very difficult, and then redefining ourselves, a piece of ourselves, something that we thought would never lose, it's gone. You had to redefine a relationship. You had to redefine who you were, and part of redefining was exactly that. Was that if I sit there and assume that I'm just that I'm going to see my kids in the evening every day, that is negating the fact that it didn't. It not only could it not happen, it might not happen, that you might not see them again, but it happened that way.
Right.
And and all the things that I went through to realize that was an event, that it changed me, it changed the relationship, it changed him, it changed me at a fundamental level. I can't just go back to, we called it, you're living the dream, and then reality comes in, and you're out in a space where the dreamers don't want to go. They're like, no, don't wake me up, man.
Don't wake me up. No, that's where she was. It's like, don't wait. Oh, no. Just assume that they're going to be back. I was like, you don't get it. I know you don't get it.
Right.
You shouldn't be advising me on anything.
Right, but it's an uncomfortable spot. And you understand the uncomfortable, because until that time, until somebody harshes your mellow like that, you're like, well, no, of course, the normal thing is that you say goodbye in the morning, and they come back and you say hello in the evening, and every day is just the same, day after day after day, and nothing bad ever happens. And we would love that to be true, but it's a false reality. And if you just sit there and take that as a status quo and don't appreciate it and don't think that it could ever change, it will, when it changes, you have a real crisis on your hands. And that's where people, we saw many times, people fall into a basket because the crisis overwhelms them to the point where they don't know. Not only do they not know who they are, but they want so badly to get back to the comfort level that they want to deny everything else. They're like, well, I never had that child. That child is not mine. That's too much.
That's too much. Yeah,
it's too much.
And it was one of those that mindset is much more prevalent than people understand, because and not to say it's conscious even. Okay, this is a subconscious reaction to something that no, you don't think about your children dying.
Right.
It's like, I'm not saying that you're supposed to think about your children dying, but what I am saying is that you are not in control of what's going on around you.
Which is just as scary in many ways.
But no. We were going to assume a lot of things. We're going to assume that this is going to happen, and this is the way it's always happened in my experience, so we're going to follow through on this, and isn't it lovely? See, this is my reality. This is how I live. And this is what I found that a lot of people do.
Right.
And I can't interact with them very much, because my reality, and I carry my reality, I don't back away from what has happened. I'm not afraid of it. I acknowledge it. I move on because I found a piece of me that is far more than circumstances.
Right.
But when I'm speaking with people who want to stay into that realm of, oh, no, you should just do this, I make them very uncomfortable, because I'm not going to just nod my head and say, oh yes, dear, pat you on the head. Like, don't ask me a question. Don't try to help me.
Well, the question is really so that you can reaffirm the sleeper's reality. It's like the cave. It's like the story of Plato's The Cave. The cave dwellers, the ones who are in this false reality, don't want to be woken up. In fact, they actively resist being woken up. And more relevant or maybe more recent example is the movie The Matrix is take the blue pill, the red pill, whatever. If you choose to be woken, the warning is, you go down the rabbit hole and everything changes. You are a different person. You're in quote unquote reality, but your comfortable dream state and who you thought you were, who you identified as you, even if you didn't like everything about it, it still was you. All of a sudden, you is a completely different people. You is not who you thought you was. And you have to redefine yourself. And then there's a thing that happens. You either run screaming back towards the pillows, or you find the strength. You redefine, and then you look back and say, you see the cave dwellers, and you see the limitations. You see that you were one of them, and now you're not. And you've redefined, and you can't go back. You can't, because you would deny all that pain and all that growth.
And all the change that has happened to you, and the fact that your awareness has broadened to a point where you don't have to think only about yourself anymore.
Right. Or it's a different you anyway.
Well, it's that redefinition. I mean, all of this, what we're talking about, has to do with ego and comfort zones. To redefine yourself, to incorporate something that is much more than what you say, what you do, and what you own, scares people.
Yeah. It's a scary thing. And getting there is usually a hellish ride.
Yeah.
there are folks, very brave folks, who set out on a journey of self-discovery, and they're never easy. And you can end up being a pariah. You can end up getting hung on a cross. You can end up starting a world religion, or you can end up in a place where everyone around you rejects you because they can't understand you. You take your chances in doing that, and there's a lot of grief on the way, because again, all those things that you were taking for granted, you have to slowly pare them away, or maybe rapidly get them pared away, and you cut yourself down to the real thing, the real eternal, uncorruptible thing that is you. It's not the ego and not all the other things that you do. And then you have to say, well, what is it? What am I really? And sans everything else, sans all the defining characteristics and the pillows and the comfort.
If you take away all your habit forms and agree with yourself that you're going to be completely honest with yourself, because that's the first step. You're not going to be able to walk this walk unless honesty is your baseline. You can't tell yourself stories about you so you can feel better. You can't make up stories about others to make you feel better.
Not even a little one?
Nope. Damn.
Well, but you can have that. You can set out on a journey of self-discovery, or life will do it for you. Life will come up and smack you between the eyes and take things away that you thought you'd never lose.
Yes, to reach your limitations and to come to the end of yourself.
Exactly.
Your definition of yourself. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you think about it, isn't that what this whole journey down here is?
Yeah.
Everyone says, oh, yes, I have to discover me. And you're sitting there going, okay, so you've reached one level. Did you ever think that maybe after discovering this this level, that maybe you can go further than that?
Well, and I think there's you got it exactly. Is the self-discovery is oftentimes just another way of getting very comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Let me just make my nest nice. I'm going to feather my nest with all these things that make me comfortable, and I don't have to work too hard or break into a sweat. It's like, oh yeah, that's always, people are always this, and it's all about you. So
yeah, and that's a wonderful thing. If it wasn't so ephemeral and it wasn't so false.
It's limiting, and you never you're in your heart, you are never fulfilled to the point of joy. You might be happy, but true joy.
Right. So this is like a Marie Kondo thing. We have to throw out everything.
What?
This is the woman who says that you pick something up and you hold it to your heart, and if it doesn't give you joy, you throw it away. There's been all this nonsense about it, but see, that is such a mental exercise, and it has nothing to do with true journeys of discovering who you are, sans all these other external things, and sans all of the kind of I am, independent and powerful and tall and not bald and all this other stuff. Sans all that. It has nothing to do with things that you can easily part with. It doesn't mean that you pick something up and hold it to your chest. Sorry, you can't do that with your eyesight, or with the fact that your leg has to be removed because it's suddenly gone bad on you, or that you lose something precious like your ability to move. That's not something you can just hug to your chest and say, well, it doesn't give me joy, so I'll just leave it on the side here. No. These are things that alter you so profoundly that you have to redefine yourself. It has nothing to do with, whether this striped cup should go in the trash or not. It's a very false way of we'll just come to essentials. No, it's just another myth. It's another comfort zone. And so
it's just rearranging everything around you. I think you used to say that. You're just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you're going down.
Yes, the ship is still going down, but wait, this configuration is so much more glug, 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 glug.
Right. But this is what I mean. And that, of course, reality. You don't want to admit that things are going down. This is what I mean. This is what I mean by being brutally honest. Yeah, it takes courage to be brutally honest with yourself.
Right.
And not to take anything less than that.
Well, and that's a great analogy, right? So the ship is sinking, the Titanic is going down, and you're not going to be the passenger or the ship captain or maybe even, somebody in one of the lifeboats. You're going to be cast away and storm-tossed and maybe going to lose your life. Who are you? You're none of those things you were before, and the ship is gone. So if you defined yourself by I'm a ship captain, or I'm a passenger, or I'm one of the people playing the band, or I'm one of the people rearranging the deck chairs, all those things are not you. They're just comfortable facades that if you lose and you grieve and let go, there's still something there that's doing the losing, grieving, and letting go. That's who you are.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Your consciousness. And it's more than, again, your ego.
Yeah.
It's more than what you think. It's more than what you do. It's more than what you feel. What your emotions happen to be. More.
So, I mean, if we've gone far afield, but I think the idea of the very primary thing of appreciation is something that is important. We should appreciate what we have because it is ephemeral, and what makes it precious is that it can be lost. But appreciation can be yet another sort of mask. Well, I'm grateful for everything, so therefore I'll never lose it. No. Even things that you totally realize that you are completely dependent upon and realize the value of to the nth degree and realize that you'd never want to lose them, they may get lost. And then there's still something there that does the losing, and there's still something there which becomes changed by the loss.
What's the observer?
Yeah.
The observer's viewpoint. What is the observer? Who are you? Who are you really?
I know. One of us is waiting for the other one to say it, aren't we? I'm not saying it this time.
Okay.
I'm not doing any Lion King quotes.
But I want to just bring up this one point, and it's a discussion that we had at the rehab center, speaking to people who were working through their alcoholic addiction or their narcotic addiction. But the discussion was, we all know what it's like to grasp something and try to fill your heart with it. It's like, this thing will make me happy, or that thing will make me happy, or this experience will make me happy. And they all agreed it was just, it's this endless, it's putting this thing in, and that thing in, and this thing in. And it never filled their heart. And they came to the realization that only God can fill that. And that was a big revelation. Like, wait a minute, none of the narcotics, none of the alcohol, none of it could stop that emptiness deep inside of me.
Mm.
No matter how many times I would do that, it never lasted. So from that particular point, understanding that only God can fill that part of you, part of your heart where you can actually come to joy.
Mm.
The question I want to ask is, who are you really? Who are you that only God, an infinite being, boundless, filling creation, only that being can fill you?
Mm.
Who are you?
Yeah, it's a very sort of it's the question is, if we're so vast that only something which can fill the universe can fill your heart.
Mm-hmm.
What is the size of your heart? What is when the lack that you experience in your heart, when you finally reach the end of yourself and realize that none of the things externally define you, none of the things externally fill you, that vast emptiness of the removal of ego and the removal of the external seems too great for who we think we are. So our appreciation of who we think we are is wrong at a
Right.
fundamental level.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And when you look at that, you just embrace it. Just sit with that.
Appreciate that.
That concept that only God can fill this vast emptiness in my heart.
Right. So we are vast in one way. We are vastly able to be emptied and therefore filled.
Well, maybe that is the baseline of this experience. To
Yes.
understand what it means to be vast and empty.
Ooh. I like that.
You have that experience, and now you know what it means to be filled infinitely.
And I think we've filled this infinite hour. And so this has been The Soul of the Everyman, and I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret, and thank you for listening.